Hello, everyone. Randall Gilmore here, and I'm talking today with Dori Durbin. Dori lives in Adrian, Michigan, and she is the illustrator for my new children's book, Jesus' First Miracle. And really excited to talk with her about her role in this project. Hi, Dori. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Randall. Thank you so much for the time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for talking with me today about your role as the illustrator for Jesus' First Miracle. Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I do live in Adrian, Michigan, like you mentioned. I have a husband and two kids. We live out in the country. My two kids, I hesitate, but I call them young adults now because they're in their 19 and 21 and in college. And they grew up around here. I grew up around here. It's a community that has always kind of been near and dear to our family. And we live out in the country where we have lots of cats.
Nice. Yeah, in fact, your email is artsy barn cat, right?
Yes,
You like
yes.
cats. Yeah.
Always been
And
a part of our lives somehow.
yeah. And I imagine with your son and daughter being a little bit older now to their late teens, right? Early 20s, did you say? Yeah, they probably don't like to be called kids anymore.
Not so much. They're pretty independent. So the young adult part feels a little odd, but I think they'd rather be called that.
Yeah. Now, your husband serves in a Christian school, right?
Yes. So he's the head of schools at Lenway Christian in Adrian, Michigan.
Yeah. How long has he done that?
I knew you were going to ask me. I have to think. I think he's going on 8 years, but
Mm.
yeah, it's been a while.
And you guys then have lived in Adrian for all your life, your married life together?
All our married life, yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah,
Great.
well, except for maybe a year, but that was very short amount of time. The majority of our married life, we've been here.
Yeah. So tell everyone what got you interested in illustrating children's books.
So it's kind of a funny story. I always drew, and I drew quietly. I never
Mm.
felt like my art was anything unusual or really fantastic. And so I kept that kind of a secret of my personality until I was in college. In college, I was pre med, and so I didn't really have the extra ability to take art classes because of the classes I was taking. And even when I switched out of pre med, I still didn't take art classes. So it was when I actually was an adult. One of our friends found out that I liked to paint and liked to draw. And she said, "Would you ever consider doing some artwork for me of my dog?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know how that would turn out." I was really hesitant because it wasn't something I put out there for a lot of people. And so, long story short, I ended up doing several dogs for her and then for other people. And then that's where the artsy barn cat came in because then I started to actually offer portrait art. So it wasn't until I got pretty confident with that I started to think, well, why haven't I tried to write a children's book, and why haven't I tried to actually illustrate it myself? So it took that process for me to get to that point, and I was
Yeah.
still so nervous with my first book. So just for anybody out there that has ever thought about it, you're not alone if that's part of your effort, because it is scary to think about people seeing your work,
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
worry about that. So yeah, it took a little while for me to get to that point, but I finally did.
Yeah. The same is true for writing, by the way. So it's not just the illustrating, but in both cases,
So
you're
true.
putting yourself out there and wondering what people are going to think. So that your first book was how long ago?
So that was in 2000, actually 2020. It was right before the pandemic really officially broke out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
and you probably have just grown through this as you've done it. So, talk to us a little bit about that. How have you grown through all the work that you've been doing illustrating?
Yeah, it's actually been really fascinating. I would redo pictures over and over and over, and then I got to the point where it was kind of more natural. And then I started to kind of experiment with different styles and try different things. I started originally on everything had to be written on paper. I would draft everything on paper and pencil, and put myself through several phases before I put anything out there. And now I can draw right on, I use an iPad, and I can draw right on the iPad, and I still do drafts, but it's so much more natural and it's so much more free. And I find myself trying to think outside of what the initial reaction is. Like I used to just draw what I thought, and now I think about it and I try to find another means of a different way to draw it to kind of push myself. So I'm actually gone from doing the portrait art to I'm working on a graphic novel right now, which I never ever thought I would ever do, and doing the art for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a really fascinating and fun process for me.
Yeah. I don't think people realize sometimes that as an artist and somebody that has some talent given by God to you to do this, there's still that part of it where you're developing that talent and you're growing in it. And like you said, trying new things and then landing on a process that you're going to use when you're doing either the children's books or now the graphic novel. That's great. Um, well, let's talk about Jesus' First Miracle and that project. And what were you hoping to accomplish with the illustrations when you first saw the story? And I talked with you about possibly illustrating. What were you hoping to accomplish with this?
Yeah, so that kind of changed the more I thought about it. At first, I felt like it had to be very ornate art. And then the more I thought about it, I thought about the time period, and that was really important to you too, keeping
Mhm.
true to like the time period and not adding in things that wouldn't have existed in that time, and the colors of the time period, and kind of what the backgrounds would be like. And sometimes, and not always, but sometimes those pictures can overtake what the message is. And so trying to keep that balanced out. So, really, my ultimate goal was to represent the time period, to make it simple but interesting, and to really try to amplify what wasn't said in the text itself. And so, my goal was to make it be something that would appeal to any age, not just little kids, not medium, but to the parents too, so that it was something that they could go back and look at and say, I have this favorite page, or I have this favorite part of the book, and be able to pick those things out. So that was my ultimate goal.
Yeah. Well, you did a really good job with that. And I think that, again, it's interesting. I think what will be interesting to people to hear is that illustrating a book like this is not just a matter of sitting down and within the space of 30 minutes or so, you've got all the pictures drawn, all the illustrations drawn. You put a lot of time into that. And not just the process of drawing, but the time of thinking about the period, thinking about the colors, and thinking about, like you just said, wanting people to pick up visual cues that will enhance the story. And you did a great job. I'm really pleased with it. I was pleased from the very first draft that I saw that you were doing. So it was a blessing to me to see your work. Now, I know one of the fun things that we did, we put a little dog on several of the panels, several of the pages, and I think it's kind of fun. My wife thought about that in the beginning. She said, we got to see that dog kind of carry throughout the story. You did that, and that was really cute how that came out. I wonder though, which panel or which page, because some of the pages are a spread and more than one page, not just a half a page, so to speak, but a full spread. Which page or spread is your favorite in the story?
I think the one where everyone is sitting at the table,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much going on between the people at the table. And if I were a kid, I would be thinking of, well, what is that person looking at? And why are they talking to that person? And are they paying attention to this over here? And the dog's in there, and all the majority of the characters are all in one spot. And so that's probably my favorite one to look at.
Yeah.
What about
I
you?
like that one too. Well, I like that one, and I like the table itself with all the food that goes across the two. I mean, that really captures that this is going to be a feast of abundance when Jesus returns and accomplishes all of this. And I think that captures that really well. So I love that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny
Um,
when you're talking about trying to come up with the backgrounds. One of the
yeah.
things that I enjoyed was researching and trying to find pictures. And it
Hmm.
was really interesting because you never think about, well, there are no pictures of people during Jesus' time, really. So then you have to go to the artist renditions of what those periods were. And then what I did was I kept looking and trying to compare what are some similarities. And that was the same thing with the food. It was, okay, what did they eat? There are no pictures of what they ate, really, but there are, but they're not. So that was really a fascinating thing for me to play with.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's so impressive to me is that you know I didn't actually give you these ideas. You came up with these ideas for how to illustrate this, and I'm just so pleased with it. But again, it's that effort and that talent and just that gift from the Lord to be able to do that sort of thing. So it's exciting to see that. I wonder, after you read through the story of Jesus' first miracle, and I got to say that most people, when they've taught that story or when they've heard that story, they hear that Jesus turned water into wine as his first miracle in order to show his power over creation, that he's the Lord of creation, which I'm sure there's an element of that in the story. But in Jesus' first miracle in the children's book, we take that really to the purpose of Jesus showing that he's the one in charge of the coming restoration of all things. And we get that connection with Isaiah 25, and it's a really cool connection. But I just wonder, how has that story impacted you in your life, the story of Jesus' first miracle?
You know, it was interesting because I've heard the story. I've heard it my whole life.
Of course.
But what hit me differently, and it's probably from illustrating it, was the fact that, Mary as a mom
Mm.
wanted to tell everybody about the wonderful things that our son was capable of doing. And I think, from the parenting level, we all want to tell the wonderful things that our
Of
kids are
course.
doing, and we want to show them off to some extent. And the fact that Jesus was like, no, no, not right now, mom, I don't have, this isn't my purpose, this isn't my goal. It really spoke to his humility
Mm.
and the fact that she was able to not just run out there and tell everybody, by the way, this is what my son did. It just spoke to me really on a really different level because I was trying to figure out, okay, so what would this look like?
Mm.
How would he tell her this without embarrassing her, without drawing attention to himself? What does that look like? And what
Yeah,
does it feel like to him and to her? So it put it on a different level for me, which was really
right.
fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about the story that sometimes we just read right past because we all know the story. We've all heard the story before as Christians. But to realize in the moment, it was sort of a very special thing between Jesus and Mary on one level, and between Jesus and the disciples on another level, and then Jesus and the servants who knew about it on that third level. So it's really interesting that you as a mom would zero in on that level between Jesus and Mary. And
Yeah.
I just I think that's really cool. Well, look, I know that you put a lot of work in this, and uh, it's something that's come out really well. In fact, I'm supposed to be getting the draft copy from the printer today, and the proof copy, and I'm really excited about that. I would be surprised if it showed up before we finished talking, but it's on its way at least, and I'm excited about that. And excited about your work, and I know that you are doing so many other things as well. So why don't you tell everyone what your website is and how they would get in touch with you, because you might also be involved or be available for other projects that other people might have, and tell them about what you're doing for people at Christmas as well.
Sure, sure. So my website's super easy. It's www.dori, D-O-R-I, Durbin, Durbin.com. And you can reach me there. You can also just email me. It's hello@doridurbin.com. And then as far as Christmas goes, I am working on a project that is basically a 2-day workshop. So it'll be a Thursday, Friday, or a Saturday, Sunday. It's coming up actually this Thursday, this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's intended for parents and grandparents who want to save their childhood memories for their kids. So for
Mm.
instance, maybe there's like a first that has a great story. It's a first lost tooth. It's a first time walking. It's a first whatever, or it's a funny time when. Anything along that lines, a lot of times we say, I should really write that down and make that a book, but we never do. And
Yeah.
so my goal is to help parents come up with a way, which is simple, to get that going and to actually have a draft ready to go so they can just hand it to their child and say, look what I did for Christmas for you. And then from that point, if they want to finish it, great. If they don't want to, it's still fabulous because it's this memory that they both share and that's been captured on paper to keep for as long as they want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I hope that a lot of people take advantage of that. And that's coming up, you say, here in another weekend, or
So this coming Thursday, Friday,
oh, this coming
that's
Thursday,
one
Friday.
choice. Yep. And then
Okay.
the other choice is Saturday and Sunday. So I tried to do two chunks, 2 days close together so they couldn't run away. And so it wouldn't take up too much time. It's about 90 minutes a day and that's it.
Yeah. And how do they get in touch with you for this?
So if they want to get in touch with me, they can reach out. Let's send them to my home email, and that's Artsy, ARTSY, and then Barncat, BARNCAT, at gmail.com. You can do
Artsy Barn
that.
Cat. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then I will also, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just as Dori Durbin. You can probably find a link there too by the end of the day today, because we're working on a couple link issues, but once it's all settled, it'll be up and running.
Okay. Well, Dori, thanks so much for the time today. Again, I've been really excited about your work, and I hope that we're able to work together again on other projects. And I hope also people will take advantage of this idea you have for Christmas. And I think it sounds like a great idea. As a grandfather, I know that that would be a lot of fun myself, but I hope others will take advantage of that and that you really prosper in this. Thank you so much for your part in Jesus' First Miracle. You've made it a better story, a better children's book, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I can't wait for people to hear the story the way that you've written it and to really let it resonate in who they are and who they are to Jesus as well.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.